So Mesmer has had a long and rich history of being the most broken class in Guild Wars 2. While briefly overshadowed by their equally broken counterparts, the Necromancer and the Guardian, the Mesmer has been best in slot pretty much since raids were introduced into Guild Wars 2. While there has been a number of highs and lows in terms of balance, in 2024, the Mesmer is riding a high as one of the strongest classes in its available roles, mostly thanks to the utility and versatility that the class has innately. This is a class that I have played a ton of through my Zero to Hero series and just in general endgame, as the builds the Mesmer currently has are some of the best in the game. Like always, we are going to start with the Power DPS option, which for the Mesmer is the Power DPS Virtuoso. The Power Virtuoso is the stronger of the two options, even though technically Power DPS Chrono still exists. It is easier to manage Virtuoso daggers than it is to work around clone generation and continuum split. With that said, the Power Virtuoso runs full Berserker gear, excluding the pants, which are assassin stats. You will run Runes of the Dragon Hunter and Relic of the Firework. For weapons, you run Dagger Sword and Spear with Force and Accuracy on both weapon sets, alongside Standard Powered Food, which is Sous Vide Steak or Butternut Squash, and Superior Sharpening Stones. For the traits, you are going to run Domination 2-2-1, Dueling 1-3-1, and Virtuoso 2-2-2. Your standard skill loadout is going to be Signet of the Ether, Phantasmal Disenchanter, Rain of Swords, Mantra of Pain, and 1000 Cuts. There are skill variations here where you can drop 1000 Cuts for Signet of Humility, and Rain of Swords is your overall DPS utility, so you can swap that skill out for Portals, Mantra of Concentration, Feedback, or whatever else your party may need. The rotation for this bad boy centers around your Phantasms, which is common amongst all of these builds, and resetting them through the use of your heal skill while blowing your 5-blade F skills. And like I said, that is pretty standard between the Power and Condi variations of Virtuoso. So it looks something like this. You use your Dagger Sword Phantasm abilities with your F5 as an opener, and then on Spear you use skill 2 to gain clarity, and then skill 4, and then reset your abilities with your heal skill. You use your utility skills, your F abilities, and auto attack chains in the meantime. But ensuring that you use your clarity charged skill 4 on Spear is the critical component. F skills, weapon skills, utility skills fill the in-between time between that key concept. Ultimately, the rotation is Sword Dagger Opener, Swap, 2 initial combos of your 2+4 thanks to your heal skill reset, and then filler until one last combo of 2-4 before weapon swapping back to Dagger Sword. On Sword, skill 5 is used twice with auto attacks, utilities, F skills as filler before you can swap back to Spear again and do the same thing. Really, this build isn't too hard, but it is more challenging than the Condi variant. Frankly, to make things easier, dropping your elite skill for Signet of Humility and Rain of Swords for stability generation will make things a little lower APM while bringing more group support to the table. As for the Condi DPS version, let's talk about the best Condi DPS build in the game, the Condi DPS Virtuoso. There have been a number of Condi Virtuoso builds in the past, and this one is actually an updated version to the one that I have been running. This build is by far the best Condi DPS in the game by virtue that it can maintain its damage at maximum range. It has a low ramp up time, it is easily understandable in terms of rotation, and it runs mostly Signets as its utility, which lowers the APM needed to achieve decent numbers. There's a reason why this class gets stacked for any progression group, because it's high DPS, it has high CC, and baked in defenses with Sword 4, Distortion, and self-healing from the Jagged Mind trait, which makes this build very hard to beat. For the gear, you are going to be running a mix of Rampagers and Sinister's gear, with helm, shoulders, and gloves being Rampagers, and the coat, pants, and boots being Sinister. The runes you will be using are Runes of the Crate, and the relic is Relic of Aristocracy. Additionally, your trinkets are mixed, with your backpack and rings being Rampager, while your accessories and amulet are sinister. Your weapons are dagger sword and focus offhand, with agony on the main hand dagger and earth on both offhands. Your food is going to be celestial food, so spherified cilantro oyster soup with toxic focusing crystals. Your traits are going to be Illusion 131, Dueling 131, and Virtuoso 323, with your utilities being Signet of the Ether, Illusions, Domination, and Midnight, with either Thousand Cuts or Signet of Humility as your elite skill. Signet of Illusions here is your primary flex skill, and it can be used either in your rotation for higher DPS or ignored for a more low intensity feel. The rotation is anchored by your Phantasm use, like most Mesmer builds, with your dagger skills being used, F skills being used, with Phantasmal Swordsman being the priority on sword, and Phantasmal Warden being the priority on your focus. Phantasmal Warden is the skill that gets reset by your healing skill in the rotation. The general concept is spam dagger, spam phantasm, spam F skills as long as you reach 5 blades, with your F5, F2, and F1 being priority, and since you are primarily tracking weapon skills, it makes for an easy peasy rotation to get used to. I do cover the Condi Virtuoso in a standalone build video, so if you want to run this gear and follow that rotation guide, it may help out more. For Boon DPS options, Chronomancer can do both quickness and alacrity, and in this case it has a power and a Condi variation. To start, we will cover the power version, which runs pretty similarly to the Power Virtuoso, except you have some clone management and continuum split to deal with. For gear, you are going to be running nearly full Assassin's gear, excluding a Berserker's helm, coat, 1 ring, and 1 amulet, with Relic of the Claw. You are running dagger sword and spear with force and impact on both sets. You're going to be running non-standard power food with the salsa plate, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, like the coq au vin. I'm not French, so just, it's salsa plate. It is power and precision food instead of power and ferocity food. And you're going to be running Furious Sharpening Stones as your utility. For traits, you're going to run Dueling 131, Domination 221, and Chronomancer 2-3, and then either 1 or 2 depending on the boon you want. You run Signet of the Ether as your heal skill for your Phantasm reset, Well of Calamity, Well of Salinity, Mantra of Pain, and Gravity Well. Basically, the rotation is focused around spamming Phantasms for damage, but spamming your skill 2 on each weapon set to generate clones, primarily for continuum split, and then you blow as many utilities and shatters in that window, and then you do the same thing after continuum split expires. Make sure you always use your Spear 4 after Spear 2, and then refresh it with skill 5, use your heal skill, and do the same thing. So it is skill 2-4, heal, skill 5, skill 2-4, and make sure that you only use your mantra while it has 2 charges. This build is pretty good, and it brings Mesmer utility to the table, good DPS, but it is fairly complicated to play in comparison to other alternatives. You can also use Greatsword in the place of Spear if you don't have Janther Wilds or you don't like the Spear option. I've been running the older, lower DPS version of this build on my Zero to Hero account, and it's worked out pretty well so far. Alternatively, you can run the less commonly talked about Condi Chronomancer, which is fairly strange to play since it relies on staff to generate clones, but I think with some more playtime it would be more comfortable. It has a very staff Mirage feel to it, so I'm not against the build, but it definitely lacks compared to the power variation of this build. The build is fairly easy to gear with full Vipers, Runes of the Trapper, and Relic of Akeem. Weapons are going to be Scepter Torch and Staff, with Bursting and Earth on your Scepter Torch set and Bursting and Torment on Staff. Alternate Condi food with Meaty Asparagus Skewers and Potent Master Tuning Crystal, and your traits are going to be Chaos 133, Illusions 333, and Chronomancer 2-3, and then 1 or 2. Your skills are going to be Signet of the Ether, Signet of Domination, Signet of Midnight, Mirror Images, and Signet of Humility. Your clones are generated primarily through the use of Scepter auto attacks, Staff 2, Staff 3, which is the skill that you are going to reset with your heal skill. Scepter 2 and Torch 4 are primary Condi bonus damage, and like with Power Chrono, you want to use Continuum Split to duplicate as many skills as possible. Primarily, it's going to be Chaos Storm, Chaos Aura, and your Shatter skills. Mirror Images is for bonus clone generation. However, it can be swapped out for any other Chronomancer utility you want. In my opinion, the rotation on this one is fairly unique, and it doesn't really follow an easy pattern. It is still a completely viable build, but like with Power, it's just harder to play than some of the easier alternatives out there. The last build is the Heal Chronomancer, and after that I will take a minute to talk about the Mirage. So if you want to know why I'm not covering the Mirage too much in this, you can stick around after Heal Chronomancer and I'll tell you all about it. The Heal Chronomancer is arguably the best all-around healer right now, and it does have the ability to pre-boon in fractals. It has as much utility as needed for every encounter, and it is one of the best stability providers in the game. It has been an all-around go-to tank since the olden days, with a slight derail during the Firebrand era, but as it stands currently, I foresee the Heal Chronomancer taking over the spot that the Alak Heal Scourge leaves after the Transfusion nerf goes live. And truth be told, the build is incredibly easy to play. Like always, healers, the gear is Harriers or Minstrels with Runes of the Monk, and you can run Relic of Phoebe for more swiftness generation. I opt for Relic of the Flock for extra barrier generation since heal skill spam is part of the playstyle. You run Rifle as your primary with Scepter Shield as your offhand, with Transference and Paralyzation on both sets. And you run standard heal food with Fruit Salad and Bountiful Maintenance Oil, or Rice Balls for the budget option. Your traits are Chaos 2-2-3, Inspiration 2-2-2, and Chronomancer 3-3 and 1 or 2 depending on the boon. Your utility skills are Mantra of Recovery, Well of Action, Well of Salinity, Well of Precognition, and either Glyph of Humility or Gravity Well. You can play this entire healer while ignoring Continuum Split and Camping Rifle. Your clone generation is through Scepter auto attacks, Rifle 2, and heal spam, and your offhand shield can be used for blocking if you need it, or it can be swapped out for focus if you need pulls or any other variety. For 99 CM in fractals, I recommend just having your offhand set be Dagger Sword to help with the split phases. Overall, the second weapon set is basically optional. Pick what you want to help your team out, spam your skills, use your shatters, and that's the build. It's insane amounts of healing because granting boons, your wells, shatters, spamming your heal mantra, it all heals your team. So there's really no wrong way to play this unless you are literally AFK. Everybody's favorite Mesmer one trick actually played this build with one hand, so you can definitely play it as well. Now with that, let me talk about the Mirage. The Mirage did at one point have a nice build with the Alak Mirage, however that died more or less, and even though it is still playable to some degree, it really has no purpose. And instead it was replaced with what is called the Stax Mirage, which is Axe, Pistol, and Staff, and it does comparable DPS compared to the Condi Virtuoso. The main drawback is literally everything about the build though. It has forced movement, requires clone management, auto attack, counting, and is generally only playable by high-end players like the real sweatlords out there. That being said, Mirage still exists with mostly PvE and PvP builds that are outside of instance content. The Staff Immortal Mirage build that I have a build video for is still a good open world build, though for general open world I would recommend playing with the Power Virtuoso build with Signet of the Ether, Psychic Force, Rain of Swords, Blink, and Thousand Cuts as your utilities, and with Relic of Zakharos. This will give you tons of sustain, stun breaks, and allow for a high DPS bursty playstyle for map comp and general events or metas, and enough survivability not to run into problems. With that, those are all of the current best builds for Mesmer in 2024, and I want to thank you all for watching. A special thanks to all of my subscribers, and if you dig the content, please consider subscribing. We are about halfway through the classes up to this point, so if you're interested in the remaining ones, definitely subscribe. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.